what you've probably all been waiting for, aside from me talking about my career trajectory, is how we're going to be starting our day with our keynote speaker, James Cook at Next Level Coaching, who's going to be talking to us about the 6 mindset barriers to customer confidence and their 6 principles to overcome them. James is joining us from London, and let's see if we've got James on the line here. Hi, James.
Hi, Christy. How are you? How are you? How are you doing?
How's everything in London?
It's good. It's rainy, which is not a surprise to anyone who's ever been to the UK or indeed has not. But other than that, all things are good.
Excellent. Well, we are so thrilled to have you here, James. I'm really excited. I think you probably remember when we first connected, I was just super excited and inspired by this entire conversation you're going to lead us through today. And so I'm honored to welcome you to our virtual stage here as you lead our customer success community through this topic. So without further ado, James, I will pass it over to you to get us started.
All right, Christy, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. I am really looking forward to talking to you guys about something that I'm very, very passionate about. And this keynote, much like most of the workshops that I've ever built, were built to serve one of my own needs. And so this comes from a very my own personal career trajectory. So I really do hope that you get a lot from it. I have a couple of goals for this keynote today, one of which is to echo Christy's point from her talk just now, is to inspire you. Not all of it's going to be relevant to you, but there will be things that grab you, things that are light bulb moments for you. And so I want you to really take those, focus on those ones. And so yes, welcome to 6 mindset barriers to customer confidence and 6 principles to overcome them. We could call that 6 principles to dance with them. It's about progress, not perfection, with anything that I do. And so as we go through this, I want you to bear that in mind. First things first, we're in the world of virtual. And so if I suddenly disappear, I shouldn't do, but if I do, I will come back. If you disappear, do what you need to do, come back to us, we'll be waiting for you. So here's today's agenda. Here's what I'm going to be talking to you guys about for the next little while. First, we're going to talk about Next Level's perspective, who we are, what we do, and how that informs everything else that I'm going to be talking to you about today. Then we're going to spend a bit of time talking about some definitions. What exactly do I mean by mindset barriers? What exactly do I mean by customer confidence? What are principles? We're going to get into all of that because what I've found in my work with customer success professionals, leaders, and founders is that the right or the most useful definition to a particular term in of itself will change how you see things and how you will perform at them. We'll then get into the barriers themselves. We're going to dive deep into them. We're going to talk about the barriers that I've found over my years of coaching. We're going to talk about what they do, how they dampen our natural talents and enthusiasm, how we can move through them, and in some cases, some actions to take. Some of these actions are going to sound really, really obvious because they are, but that which is most obvious is often overlooked. And so I'm going to get it said so that we can move past them together. We're then going to move into the principles, and these are guides for our ways of thinking, guides for doing small things, big things, and everything in between in our customer success game that if not directly counteract the barriers that you're going to see, they'll help guide you through different challenges that you face in your role right now. And then we're going to round it up and some lessons and then some next steps that you can take if you want to know more. My aim is to help, first and foremost. I always want these things to be entertaining, but I want them to be useful. I want this time we spend together to give you something that you can go away and put into practice today. But mainly it's going to be questions. Mainly it's going to be getting you thinking about yourselves, your performance, your areas of improvement, the things that you're strong at, and all things in between. As we go through this, I want to make it as interactive as we possibly can. And so I want you to look out for this little icon, this little notepad and pen. This is your cue to write some stuff down. You certainly don't have to, but think of it as silent coaching. Think of this as my way of helping make these things a little bit more practical for you. So when you see this icon, you'll also see a question. I'll, of course, read out the question. But what I'm going to get you to do is I want you to write your answers down. Here's the key. They are just for you. You can share them if you want, but no one is going to be watching over your shoulder. How could they be? So I want you to be really real with yourselves. I want you to reflect. I want you to get those half-formed thoughts down, but write them down. That's key, because if it's written, it's real, but it's just for you. So be honest. The key thing to remember here is that in this exercise, in these exercises that are coming, there are no right or wrong answers. There are only real and not real. And since it's only you that's ever going to see them, I invite you to be as real as you can. As I said, there's going to be a lot today. too much for you to be to take in all together. If you want to copy the slides, I'm happy to send them through. But what I want you to do is really just only take notes of the things that really grab you, those light bulb moments, those things that go, yes, that feels real, that feels true for me. And then write that down and get that said. The rest of the time, sit back, enjoy it, be thinking, be engaging. You certainly don't need to be taking notes the whole time. In all of the workshops that we do, we have a series of rules, and those rules are there to create the right environment for the right kind of learning, the best kind of learning to take place. We have rules such as be present, leave the outside world at the door. When we're in workshop mode, it's a conversation, everyone contributes. To be creative, we're not judging in this space. So I invite you guys to not judge yourselves as we go through this. What I talk about will bring up areas of weakness, things we're not strong at. That's the point. We want to work on the things that we're not strong at so we can get stronger at them. It's about progress, not perfection. There is no perfect. For all of you recovering perfectionists out there, and I am one of you, I want you to remember that there is no perfect. There is only progress. Be uncomfortable, because that's how we learn. You never learned anything without a bit of discomfort. Be honest, be constructive. In the workshops that I run, we go to some heavy places. We want it to be constructive always, and change what you can change, because that is enough. Those rules are all useful, but I want you to remember these 4: 1, 4, 5, and 7. First, be present. There's plenty to go through today. There's plenty to go through in this session. I'm sure you've got emails. I'm sure you've got Slack messages. I'm sure you've got lots going on. Allow yourselves to be present with me listening along. I have a wife and a daughter. I am used to being ignored. I'm used to not being listened to. But what I want you to do is be present for yourselves to get what you want to get what you can get out of today. Remember that it's progress, not perfection. There is no doing anything perfectly in what I'm about to tell you. It is only steps forward. It's only progress. Be uncomfortable. Challenge yourselves in the silent coaching exercises. Challenge yourself to write down the things that you're not comfortable speaking out loud. Be real with yourselves, because that's how you're going to learn. And then when it comes to, hey, what can I change? How can I move forward? Focus on what you can change, because that will always, always be enough. So first things first, our perspective. Who is Next Level? Who am I? And what is it that we're talking about today? So biggest, broadest statement you're going to get today is we specialize in organizational high performance. What does that mean? Next Level are a group of coaches, and we work with teams, individuals, and organizations to remove the barriers that hold them back from a higher level of performance. Ultimately, the vision that we have at Next Level is a question, because we're coaches, we love to ask questions, and it is, what would the world look like if we all lived to our fullest potential and lived our best lives? What would it look like? What would your career look like if you achieved your fullest potential and lived your best customer success life? That is why Next Level exists. That is what we do. And we do that by focusing on what we call the 3 pillars of high performance. And these can be for a person, a team, or an organization. First is mindset. Mindset, and we're going to define it a bit more later on, is the confidence to perform. It's great to have skills. It's great to have tools. It's great to have techniques. And I have no doubt that you're going to get plenty of amazing stuff today as you go through the course of your day. But mindset is the start. Mindset is the key, because if you do not have the confidence to go and try the new things that you're learning, you're never going to get proficient at them. And confidence starts in the mind. And so we spend a lot of our time, we're all trained coaches. That's where we came from. That's what we do. We spend a lot of our time working with our teams and our individuals on their mindset, their approach to their professional performance. Then there's skills, the tools, the capacities to perform at a higher level, and then culture. We do it together. We do it in teams. We do it as an organization so that we have the right environment for performance. Today is all about mindset. Today is about how we think about what it is we're going to do. There'll be 1 or 2 ideas for sure, but this is about mindset stuff. And so it will be abstract. It will be principles based. It will be broad. That's the point. You're going to take from it what you want, and you're going to tailor it to your situation. As I said, we work with organizations, and we work in 3 levels. At the top level, we work on high performance culture building. So that's clear structures, clear cultural frameworks, purpose, values, getting everyone aligned around how we do things around here in our team, in our organization. Why do we do this? Well, 1, because it makes for a better place to work, but also we want consistent optimization. We want to always be running at high capacity, at high performance. And as we scale, as a team, a customer success team gets bigger, We want to be able to keep that high level of performance as it grows. And ultimately, the impact of this side of our work is in retention and productivity, keeping our talent in the customer success team and getting them to be as productive as we know that they can be. We work with leadership. We do a lot of work with leadership, from high all the way down to the first line team leaders. This is about frameworks for leadership. This is about helping leaders stay resilient, stay focused, stay empowered, stay dynamic, and help drive that level of performance and confidence that they need from their teams. That's again about organizational efficiency and team resilience. If we have a resilient leader, we have a resilient team. And so a lot of our work, we talk with leaders, we hear the things they're struggling with in their customer success teams, in their worlds that as we see it. And so all of that informs what we're going to talk about today. And then finally, and the most key for today, is the confident and proactive customer teams work that we do. We work on commercial mindsets and skills with customer success and sales team. I myself have a sales training background. We work with customer success teams to help them get confident selling, confident having commercial conversations, feeling confident talking to stakeholders about money, about budget, about KPIs, about ROI, all of these big acronyms that make us get a little bit tense. That's what we do. And that's what today is about. So we have, I call them the human elements, because culture is about belonging. Do I feel a sense of belonging in this team? Owen Eastwood, who's a great culture builder in his own right, talks about the sense of belonging being foundational to high performance, because if a team does not feel like they belong, if an individual does not feel like they belong in a team, then they are going to spend more of their energy trying to fit in than trying to perform. And so to all you team leaders and leaders of organizations out there, focus on your culture, because that sense of belonging will improve the performance. Then clarity, leadership. Leadership's about bringing that clear sense of direction, of focus, of what's relevant, what's not to a team. And then, and this is the key point I want to be focusing in on for a few minutes, energy. Customer success, sales, anyone that is anything to do with customers is about the energy of an organization. And let me tell you what I mean. This energy, this is what drives organizations forward and gets them to scale, gets them to grow. Sales, as my mentor used to tell me and still does to this day, sales is the energy of enthusiasm and opportunity. When we work with customer success teams, a lot of the time they don't feel confident going in and talking to big groups of people or high-level executives in their client companies, but they need to. They need to have that enthusiasm. They need to have that passion that we know that they do, but that gets dampened when they don't feel that sense of confidence. And if they can, then there's that wondrous sense of opportunity from building those relationships and building those networks and getting higher and wider in an organization. The energy of customers, getting more customers in, it's always a thrill. That energy of connection and status. These are the logos that we have working for us. The energy of revenue. We've all been through an incredibly tough time over the last few years, and it's affected us individually on different ways. But the broad impact of the last couple of years has been, this does not feel stable. But you guys, as customer success professionals in customer teams, you have the power, the responsibility of bringing that sense of stability and possibility, because you guys are the key to the revenue. You guys are the key to delivery, of making sure that what your clients are buying, they get to use to its fullest potential. There's that thing again about potential, the energy of impact, the energy of value, the buzz as you see your clients go, this thing's awesome. We want more, we want better. And then of course, the energy of refinement, refining the product. You are the bridge, you are the conduit between your clients and the business. You are the ones that internally they're going to come to and go, hey, what are the clients saying about this? You are the ones that the client's going to come to and go, hey, can we have this? Can we improve this? You are the key. And so when I say that customer success and customer teams is about energy, that's what I mean. You guys have got it. You've got that energy for the enthusiasm. And so our perspective on customer success is you are the engine. You are the ones that are going to help a company start and scale. It's that simple. Yes, sales is key. Customer success, in our opinion, is a sales role. It's a different kind of sales role, but it has sales elements in it. And that's what the rest of today is about. And so all of the work that we do is what informs the perspective that follows. Let's now move to definitions. What do we mean by mindset barriers? What do we mean by customer confidence? Well, first of all, customer confidence is the confidence in selling and conducting sales activities. Now, there is a chance that I may have lost some of you by now. There is a chance you've gone, no, and gone for a coffee. That's cool. Go get your coffee. When I've talked to different customer success organizations, there's a big split. Some don't see themselves as a sales role, and some absolutely do. I'm going to invite you for at least the next 45 minutes to embrace the idea that this is a sales role. And I'll tell you why later on. But those who do get this idea, get this concept, you're going to like what follows. But here's, in essence, why I say this is because if you can get confident with the selling side of the role, some of the best customer success professionals I know were salespeople before. I think it's a skill set that goes so well together, because ultimately what you're doing, if you can follow that proactive, diligent, consistent activity of sales, you create confident customers. And confident customers are the ones who buy more, buy bigger, that introduce you to other logos, other brands, all that good stuff. And so that's what I mean. When I say customer confidence, I'm talking about ourselves. I'm talking about our ability to go sell and go along commercial activities. It helps to get a useful definition of sales. I do a lot of work with people who don't feel comfortable with the idea of sales because of the image it brings up. And that's one of the barriers we're going to look at. But for now, let's define it. For me, sales is just about helping someone buy what they want or what they need. No more, no less. You're serving your customers. And no one gets upset when the waiter comes with a suggestion for an extra dessert that you might really enjoy. No one gets upset by that. They either say no or they say yes. If they say yes, they get a wonderful dessert. But there is an art to it. There is a nobility in helping someone buy what they want or need. Another way of looking at sales, and it's a very useful one, and certainly one that has been useful in my own life, is sales is about how you get from where you are now to where you want to be. On the other side of the hesitation around the commercial activity, that being proactive, that customer confidence is where you want to get to. I know Christy was talking about going to the next level in your organizations. This is the way to do that, or it's a way to do that. One of the ways is to go, all right, if I know how to sell, which is to influence people, to convince people that the way I see things is the way they want to see things, to get people to buy into our ideas, which is what sales is. That's how you get to where you want to go. And great sales is about helping people achieve what they want to achieve. So that's what we're doing here. We're helping you and we're helping our clients. Whichever definition grabs you the most, I want you maybe to write that down right now, but I would like you to have both ideas in mind as you go through the next bit. Let's define confidence now. We all know what it means. We all know what it feels like, but if we were asked to write it down, what would it be? For today, I want to give you my definition of confidence. And confidence is the ability to trust yourself in a given situation. Confidence does not mean that you always are right. Confidence does not mean that you are always successful. It does not certainly mean that you never feel fear. But confidence is the ability to go into a room, virtual or otherwise, and trust yourself and go, yeah, I reckon I've got this. That's what confidence is, or at the very least, that's what we're shooting for in this conversation today. A quote that I love about confidence, because I think it speaks to the true essence of it, to true, real confidence, is this. A bird in the tree never fears the branch breaking because her trust is not in the branch, but in her own wings. That is confidence, is trusting yourself no matter what the circumstances are around you. And so as we go through today, the mindset barriers that I'm talking about are what hold us back from that level of confidence. And the principles that I talk about are how we can move towards that level of confidence. So a bit of silent coaching for you. First exercise to get you going. Grab a piece of paper, a pen, something to write down with, and go and answer this question for yourselves. And again, it's just real, honest for yourself. How confident are you at the commercial side, the sales side of your role, honestly, on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 is absolute fear, absolutely not, don't go near it. 10 is flow, I love this thing. Now, if you're anything like the customer success professionals I know, you're not going to be a 10, and you're not going to be a 1 either. So choose a number that fits for you. Now I want you to write down this question. I'm going to give you a few seconds to write this down for yourselves. What could you do if you were more confident with your customers? Now let's move on to mindset. Your mindset is your perspective, your attitude, or your belief to a given situation. You'll notice that the picture in front of you changes depending on how you look at it. Some of you immediately saw duck, some of you immediately saw rabbit. But if I say duck, you're all going to see duck. And if I say rabbit, you're all going to see rabbit. The key here is that how we think about it changes how we see it. And that is what mindset is how you see a thing. If you see it as impossible, if you see it as overwhelming, if you see it as scary and unbeatable, that's how it's going to be. If you see it as something that you can tackle, something that can be overcome, something that can be improved upon, that's how it's going to be. My mindset to maths, and it sounds like Christy and I have something in common there, when I was growing up, was not a positive mindset. I couldn't do maths. And so guess what? I didn't try very hard at maths. And so I didn't get to be very good at maths. But then as I moved into business and needed to use numbers and all that kind of stuff, I started to get quite good at it. And so as I got better at it, my mindset changed. I went, oh, wait, actually, I'm pretty good at maths. And so I got better at maths. When you change the mindset, you change your output. When you change your output, you change your performance. You still don't want me doing your accounts, but I'm better at maths. So here's the next quote to do with mindset. Whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right, by Henry Ford. I'm going to let it sit there. Whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. That's what mindset is all about. Mindset barriers. Mindset barriers are how we get in our own way. Mindset barriers are tricky because they are not something you can blame on other people. You can try, but they're all to do with us. They're all the stories that we tell ourselves. They're all part of our mindset that get in our own way, that we have to box with, that shadowy figure that comes up and comes our way when we least need it to. Mindset barriers are the way in which we get in our own way. And so now I want you to go back to the scores that you gave yourselves. And I want you to ask yourself, hey, what stands in the way between where I am now and maybe 1 or 2 points further up along this scale? Just write down your ideas now. The key thing I want you to take from this section is this. Your mindset, minus those barriers, is the key to greater levels of confidence, which is your key, your way to better, whatever it is that better means for you. Whatever it is that better means, whatever, if you got an answer to your question of what could I do if I were more confident with my customers, your key, the way to get there, at least one way to get there, is to work on your mindset. And that's what we're going to do together right now. So let's now move to barriers. And I want to give you 6 mindset barriers. Now, these I have lived myself to more or less of an extent, some including very recently, and some will be with me forevermore. I want to talk you through these 6. I want to talk through specifically what they are, give a definition. I want to talk through how they get in our way from a commercial standpoint, a selling standpoint. And with some of them, I'm going to give you, well, with all of them, I'm going to give you some perspective to consider. But then what I'm also going to give you for some key ones, some of the bigger ones, is I'm going to give you some actions to go do that start to relieve the pressure of these particular ones. Some will be relevant to you, some will not. There are some that are pretty much universal. There are some that work for some and not for others, but I'm going to go through them all. And as I said, taking this, what fits. Now, remember, mindset barriers are the way in which we get in our own way. So these are all to do with us. Now, the good news is that means we can work on them. The bad news is no one can do it for us. That's just the truth. So mindset barriers prevent us from doing the activities we need to go to the next level. Now, you'll remember the definitions of sales that I gave you. It's helping people buy what they want or what they need, and/or it's how we get from where we are now to where we want to be. So I want to share with you now the 3 laws of sales. I do a lot of sales coaching, a lot of sales training. And so here are 3 laws of sales that govern a person's success in a commercial endeavor. The first is that they will never let you know. We've all wrote those emails. We've all finished an email with, hey, let me know if you want to know more. The problem with that is that even if they really do want to know more, they're busy. Our clients are busy. They're high-level people. They've got lots to do. And so even if they do want to know, they're not going to let you know because they'll forget. It's not top of their priority list. And so we must get into our mindset as customer success professionals that they're never, ever going to come to us with a problem or with a request. It is on us to get proactive and go and create those opportunities for them to ask or for us to go straight ask. Of course, on occasion, they'll come to us, but it's good to get into the habit of always being proactive or never assuming that it's going to come to us, because that way we can create more opportunities than waiting for them. The second law is that you're always selling even when you're not. Now, if when I said before that customer success is a kind of sales role and you disagree with me, that's fair. You're entitled to your opinion. However, we're always selling even when you're not. I'm sure a lot of you have heard the idea that a company has a brand, whether they choose to be intentional about it or not. Well, we are selling whether we choose to be intentional about it or not. Your customers have come to you by way of a salesperson, so they've had an interaction with your company already. Now they're handed over to you and you're ready to get going. Whether you are intentional about the commercial side of your role or not, they are still deciding whether to buy from you or not. In my opinion, you guys have got the hard gig because they've been sold a particular vision and now you've got to deliver it for them, or at least you are instrumental. You are the face of the company in delivery. And they are still deciding whether they want to stick with you. Depending on the contracts that you have, it may be that they can just pull the plug. It may be that they're already deciding, okay, in 12 months, I'm not going to be working with this person. But the point is they're already deciding. They're always deciding whether they want to be still working with your company, with you or not. And so whether you choose to be front of mind about it or not, there's always that sales element, that buying element, that do I want to buy, do I not, going on as we go through. So it pays to remember that whether you choose to do the things I'm talking about or not, that's entirely your choice. But that buying mindset, that buying mentality is always going on in the minds of your client, whether we choose to interact with it or not. And the third law is that there are no immediate consequences to ignoring laws 1 or 2. You can completely ignore me. You can choose to wait for them to let you know. You can choose to not believe that there's selling going on. That's cool. And there will be nothing, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with not doing the sales activities in the day or maybe in the week. But they are small and they are consistent and they need to be done all the time. And if like I've done in the past, fallen into bad habits and reactive habits, then the consequence is you lose a client. You lose 2 clients, you lose your portfolio. And by then it's too late. I do a lot of work with small business owners who they think they've joined to go do their craft and follow their dream, but actually first and foremost, they're a salesperson, because if they're not, they don't have customers. And if they don't have customers, they don't have a business. And those who choose to not consistently and proactively sell are usually the ones that struggle to find the work that they need to live the life they want to live. Now, if you boil these 3 laws down, what we're really talking about here are 2 things. Confidence in the sense of proactivity, being proactive, leading our clients along a journey rather than waiting for them to come to us with good or bad news. And consistency, doing things regularly, all the time, come rain, come shine. These are the 2 key things you need to be successful in a selling context, in a commercial context. Of course, there are other things, but those are the key flavors of activity that you always want to be doing. And the thing about our mindset barriers is that they get in the way of those 2 things. So let's dive deep now into the 6 mindset barriers and see where that takes us. The first is the image of the salesperson. Nearly everyone that I've ever spoken to about this, including myself, hates the idea that they are selling. Because if we're selling, then we're a salesperson. And if we're a salesperson, then we're going to be seen as pushy or aggressive, desperate maybe dishonest, maybe have a horrible choice in fashion. But this is the problem. We don't want to be that. Who wants to be seen like that? No one wants to look like this guy that's on the slide right now. And so the challenge here is that it gets in the way of confidence because we are not proactive. We don't push forward with what we know we need to say or what we know we need to do or a product that we know the client would love, but we don't push forward with it because, or at least we hesitate to, because we don't want to be seen as a salesperson. We're here to help them, right? Yes, sales is helping people. Sales is bringing them solutions to their need. You're not going to get them to do something they don't want to do. But if you believe in the thing that you are selling, then you will put it in front of them because you know that it's going to help them. But the image of the salesperson, this mindset barrier gets in the way of that because we don't want to be seen that way. And so we don't push it forward. And it makes us awkward when we finally do have that conversation. We mince our words when we're talking about budget, or we are more hesitant when we're putting forward a new plan for a new year. And the problem with that is that we seem not confident. And if we're not confident and we don't have that enthusiasm, then they don't have that enthusiasm. So they don't buy into us. And then the whole horrible cycle starts over and over again. And it gets away in the way of consistency for a very similar reason. We fear following up. We sent that email, we said, hey, let me know. They didn't let us know. We need to follow up because our managers are on us about, hey, did you follow up on that proposal? And we don't, because we don't want to be seen as that person. And when we do, we sort of try and edge into it. And so this idea that we are a salesperson in the negative sense, in that image that some of us hold, stops us from doing the sales activities that we know we need to do. And so I want to offer you some perspectives to consider that hopefully will burst that bubble of the image of the salesperson mindset. The first is the best customer professionals, the best salespeople, best customer success people, most successful aren't like that. They're not pushy. They're not aggressive. They're not desperate. They are great at what they do. And they show that authenticity. They show that confidence. They do it their way. And so we all know people, we all know salespeople, we all know customer success people who are great, that they renew year on year. They have high retention rates. They have high upsell rates if that's on their desk, but they're not like that. And another thing is there are plenty of other good professions, noble professions that have horrible people in them. I've met some really unpleasant, pushy, aggressive doctors in my time, and yet we don't paint all doctors with that brush. It's food for thought. And the other problem with not being confident, with not being consistent, because we don't want to be seen as a salesperson, as a as pushy or aggressive, is this: if we don't do the things we need to do to hit our KPIs or to renew our clients, we're going to lose our clients. And if we lose our clients, we're going to get desperate, which makes us aggressive. And so you're going to end up doing exactly what you didn't want to do. So bear that in mind. All right, next up, which should really be the top, because this is 100% universal. Every single person in the world gets it. Imposter syndrome. Feeling like you're pretending. I have been a coach for nearly 6 years. I have coached hundreds of people, executives, business owners, team level, you name it. Every single person has had imposter syndrome. And if they say they haven't, they're either lying or they're not very self-aware. I had imposter syndrome about 35 minutes ago. I'm talking to a lot of you. I'm talking about a subject that maybe some of you get, some of you don't. And I had a wicked sense of imposter syndrome, but we moved through it. Everyone has it. How does it get in the way? Commercially, well, it gets in the way of confidence because we don't feel like we can or should be as proactive as we want to be with our customers, because who are we to do that? And so we don't. Another way it gets in the way is we undervalue ourselves, our work, our products. And so I have a story about one customer success professional that I was working with, and they had just received a new target, new mandate. They were responsible for both renewal and upsell. And he said to me, if it's a choice between getting full rate for this product or offering them a discount or giving it for free to make sure that they still like me, I'm going to do that. Here's the reality. Their commission was tied to that, but they were more interested in being comfortable than pushing what they knew to be the right choice. And so imposter syndrome, not feeling like we deserve this, not feeling like we are real and here and legit, that gets in the way of our confidence. We don't come across that way, and so we are not perceived that way. It's a barrier to consistency because we're less resilient to setbacks. No one is going to hear yes all the time in a commercial world. Things happen beyond our control. Companies get bought. Pandemics happen. Stakeholders leave for other jobs and leave us with someone who doesn't particularly care for our product. You're not always going to get it right. But if we have that wicked case of imposter syndrome, we're going to take that more personally. And so we're going to take a break from that pushing, that proactivity, that consistency, and we're going to procrastinate. We're also, and this is key, we're going to put off conversations or ignore them altogether about ROI, return on investment, expectations conversations at the beginning of our relationship. If you have an expectations conversation at the beginning of your relationship, you can get clear what the customer expects, what they don't, what's great, what's not, what success looks like, what it doesn't, the different ranges of success that they would consider acceptable. If you get that right, and for some of you, this is really obvious, for others, it might not be. If you get the expectations conversation correct and clear at the beginning, the renewal is nearly already done, because all you've got to go do is deliver. And then when it comes back to it, you can say, hey, we delivered above that line. And so do you want to sign here for another 10 years? If you don't get that, if it's ambiguous, if it's subjective, if things are left unsaid, it's going to be very, very, very hard for you to have that conversation later on. But imposter syndrome gets in the way of that. So here are some perspectives to consider. I have found it really powerful for myself and for others that I work with to forget your title and consider your role. What is it you're actually there to do? This is particularly useful for leaders, by the way, but works with any kind of profession. Forget your title. Those are loads of words that are mainly made up. Think about what your role is really. As a customer success professional, you're there to help the client get the most from what they have bought from your company. That's a definition. It might not be yours. That's a definition. That becomes a whole lot easier to do than customer success manager for the Nordics or something. Or you can create an analogy for your role and just perform that, but make it simple. Make it so that a child can understand it. If you have children, explain it to them. If you have a niece, a nephew, explain it to them. Because if it's simple, it's a lot more accessible. And when it's accessible, you can just go do that role, because I promise you can all do it. Avoid certainty and embrace discomfort. If you are certain that you are great, chances are you're not as good as you think you are. The best professionals that I know, the best leaders, the best customer success professionals, the best business owners, question themselves. They are constantly thinking, hey, how can I improve? There's a balance to be had. We don't want too much questioning. We don't want too much self-doubt. But the key is this: if you're certain, if you are comfortable, you're not pushing yourself enough, there's a nice level of pressure. There's a nice level of discomfort that tells you that you're in that zone of learning. Too much is not good either. Too much leads to burnout, leads to making mistakes that you can't come back from. But you want a good level. And also imposter syndrome. If you're thinking about yourself the whole time, you're not thinking about them enough. Be thinking about your clients. And if you're thinking about them, you're not thinking about you. Here's some actions to take. Take off your cape. Imposter syndrome is linked to perfectionism. And by perfectionism, I mean trying to be Superman or Superwoman. Just don't. We're not superheroes, and even superheroes are flawed. So take off that cape. Seek feedback and internal validation. Trying to be perfect is about getting external validation. There's nothing wrong with that, but if that's the only thing that you subsist on, it's worth starting to look for other methods of validation and seek feedback. Get comfortable with asking for uncomfortable, real feedback, and let go of perfect, as I said before. By the way, if you try and define perfect for yourself, you'll find it's very hard to do so. And even if you can, it's subjective. Everyone's perfect is different. All right, on to the third one. We're talking now about people pleasing, placing too much importance on being liked as a person and not enough on being respected as a professional. I have definitely had this in my time. I used to work with a lot of sales teams that weren't particularly very nice people, and I was spending more energy trying to get them to like me than I was on getting them to listen to me. Okay, that was just youth. Everyone does it, but here's how it gets in the way. First of all, if we're spending our time worried about whether people like us or not, if it seems like they won't, our confidence gets dented. And we may annoy that person by pushing too hard, or we may fear annoying them, so not pushing or being proactive enough. And it gets in the way of consistency because we don't want to follow up with them because we feel like we're going to annoy them, which means they won't like us. And so we don't follow up. We don't lead them down the journey, or we don't tell them the uncomfortable truths. Sometimes they're going to need to be told. Customers are not always right, despite what people keep saying. We might even compromise ourselves unfairly. We might agree to stuff that we know we can't do. We might try and get a discount that we know we shouldn't for the sake of our company because we want them to like us. And so here are some perspectives to consider. It might be that you're frustrating them by not following up because you're dragging your feet, or it might be that you're putting them off by trying to be too familiar. That can happen too. Business relationships are about mutual benefit. What have you done for me? What can you do for me? The more you do that, the more they're going to like you and respect you. Ask yourselves this: is it more important to be respected or liked? You can do both, but being respected is more resilient. It's a better state to be than being liked. And also, by trying to please everyone, I promise you're pleasing no one because you're going to be overcommitting and under-delivering. Barrier number 4, victim mindset, believing that there is nothing we can do. The stakeholder who holds the keys to our account has left, there's nothing we can do. For example, it gets in the way of confidence because we see the situation we're in through the perspective of fear, and we ask the wrong questions. What will I do? How can I do this? I can't do this. This is impossible. We see ourselves as powerless, which is neither true nor helpful. It gets in the way of consistency because we don't take action, because what's the point? We're a victim. We have no power. And we blame. I've seen a lot of customer success professionals who, and they couldn't see it, they blamed the portfolio they were given. They blamed the market conditions. They blamed all sorts of things. Now, that may be a factor, but there's always, I'm here to tell you, if someone hasn't already told you, there's always something you can do. And so what I want you to consider is this: if it feels like the situation is out of your control, if it feels like there's nothing you can do something anyway. Do it with fear. Great confidence, great courage is moving forward in the face of fear, not without it. If you didn't fear it, there'd be no courage, there'd be no confidence. Do it anyway. Keep good records so you can see how much progress you've made and opportunities you can pursue, maybe a line of questioning or something that you can go back to. Remember that if you do nothing, you definitely will fail. And then a final phrase, and it again sounds small, it sounds trite, but it is true. If you write down, and writing things out works very nicely, this happened to me, change it to, so I will. So I will go do that. So I will take a break and come back to it. So I will email my manager and ask for help. There's always something you can do. A great way to bust through victim mindset is to do the inquiry. This is not an exercise of mine. It's one that I love though. If you Google the work practice, Byron Katie, you will find the inquiry. Go through it. It's 4 very simple questions. I promise it will give you a burst of inspiration and energy that you did not know you had. Write out ideas, and again, write them because they'll be real, using could rather than will. Could is more creative. Could is, I could do this, I could do that. Will is black and white. And when we're in victim mindset, we tend to see things as black and white, right or wrong, yes or no. And it's never that way. And ask for help. We're not perfect. We're human. Ask for help. There will be someone somewhere who has had your problem and gone through it. Go ask for help. The last 2, and I'm looking at leaders here, are cultural barriers. Some have them, but it's mainly an organizational thing. And so I want you to be paying attention to these because they're subtle. They seem obvious, but they're subtle, and they can be a barrier to consistent, confident activity, or at least consistent activity. Too much passion, being way too enthusiastic about what we do, loving what we do and ourselves so much that it either puts people off or slows down commercial activity. And the way it slows commercial activity down is through consistency, because we value the product or the service so highly that we assume that people are just going to buy it. I've worked with a company that had that culturally through the whole of the founders all the way down. They thought what they did was amazing, and it was. But because they loved it so much, they didn't take the time to consider that some people might not actually want it. They would just show up to meetings and go, yeah, this is amazing. Like, how much do you want? No one likes that. We also value it so highly. We're so close to the services that we do that sometimes we assume that people understand it like we do. They don't. If it feels painfully obvious in a pitch or a proposal or a plan, you're probably halfway there. Make it extra obvious, because they don't live in the world that you do. You talk about the products all the time. Your customers do not. And it might be that we value our product so highly that there's a pricing problem. We might price it too highly or too low. We might overreach. So look at it with intelligent naivety. When you've got new people coming in, make sure they tell you what it is they don't understand about the product. Speak to people who don't value it. Some of the most useful conversations I've ever had have been sales meetings that I've failed at, where they've told me absolutely not. I've wanted to know why. Why don't they like coaching? Why don't they like training? What is it that they don't like? This is a coaching business rule, but it might hold true for some of you guys. If you don't hear that's too expensive at least 20% of the time, then it's too cheap. If you hear it more than 20% of the time, then it's too expensive. Go for the no. As customer success professionals, you need to be providing, like the waiter, providing different options, upselling, cross-selling. That's part of your job. And so if you hear no, that's good. That's the way that you know you've offered them up to the limit, enough for them. But if you never hear a no, you don't know when is the right time for them to stop, or for them that they've had enough. And remember, it's our job to lead. It's our job to ask these things. And so be proactive. Make sure that you're asking those questions that seem obvious, seem beneath you, but are not. And then this final one, linked and subtle, entitlement, assuming that the business should just come to us. This is very key with business owners, but can be in organizations as well. Well, they're just going to come because we're great. I've worked in a company like this. I was like this. It's not useful for sales because we feel like we deserve the business to come to us, so we take no action. We can present an image of arrogance, and no one buys that. We're slow to discuss return on investment because we think the product's going to talk for itself, speak for itself, and we wait for the great clients before we make them greater. We assume that if it's not working, it's something to do with the client. Never assume that. Perspectives to consider. There's always something we can do. There's always something that can be improved. And this is, again, an organizational thing more than an individual thing, but quiet confidence is always better than loud confidence. People are way more likely to buy into it. So I want you to take a few seconds now. We've just whistled through the 6 mindset barriers. Which is your biggest one right now? Just write it down for yourself. Which one feels like the biggest one? Let's talk about how we can move through them. On to principles. Now, principles are ways of acting. Principles guide a behavior or evaluation. I do jiu-jitsu, a martial art, and that's a very principles-based sport because there are thousands and thousands and thousands of techniques, but very few principles. And so if you understand the principles, you can deploy them in different techniques. The other thing I want you to remember is that principles are directions, not destinations. You're never going to do any of these perfectly. All that's worth remembering is that you're served by trying them, served by deploying them. So principles, I want you to think of them this way, as an internal compass that help us navigate difficult and uncertain situations. So the first is to be intentional, which is being deliberate and proactive in our actions towards a clear goal. I love this quote that speaks to intentionality. When your intention is clear, so is the way. How does it serve us? Well, because if we're more proactive, remember law 1, we're going to be asking, we're going to be proactive, we're going to be leading our clients, we're going to be more efficient in our actions. If we know what we want from the interaction, then we're more efficient in getting to that outcome. We're going to be clearer in our decision making. Leaders, I'm looking at you again. If you bring that intentionality to your team, knowing what's number 1 priority, 2, 3, they can be clearer in their decision making also and take more ownership. And when we are more confident in our actions, in our communication, in our presentations, that confidence inspires trust in our clients, and confident clients buy more from us than clients who are not confident. How can we put it into action? Always be asking what's next. Always be a couple of chapters further along in your client's story than they are. Always be thinking about, all right, well, what's next for them? What could be next for them? And be asking for each meeting, what's this about really? What do I want from this interaction? And be asking, what if? What if this doesn't go right? What if? Always have a backup plan. Always be ready for your clients and whatever they can throw at you. Next up is integrity. Walking the talk. I see integrity as just following through. It's a very simple one, but one that is not always practiced. How does it serve us? Because you are consistent. If you do what you say you're going to do and you do it all the time, you are consistent. Make a plan for your commercial activities and stick to it. What's great about this is it builds confidence in your clients as well. If once they see you being consistent in your actions and what you say you're going to deliver and what you deliver, that builds confidence in them and also in you, because you're going to build that momentum. You're going to have a stronger wave of commercial activity. And I promise you, you're going to love it when you're surfing that wave. And people buy into credibility and legitimacy. And so if you have that integrity, you're going to do fine. Set clear and realistic activity levels with your manager, if that's relevant, but make them clear, make them realistic for the long term, not just a week or a month, but make them realistic. And plan in your sales, your selling time, your customer time. It's important. It can feel like you can put it off, but if you plan it in, you're going to get it done. And if you get it done, you're going to be consistent. And even if you don't feel like doing something, if you're scared of something, do it anyway. Ignore those fears and deploy your integrity principle. Next up, objectivity, seeing things as they are, not how we want them to be. In the work that I do with customer success professionals, they often fear particular selling parts of the role. And so what do? They procrastinate because they don't want to do it. Objectivity is the key. It's about knowing that not everything in your job is going to be fun. The sales part's particularly not fun, but neither is losing a client. And so objectivity keeps emotion out of it. You're going to have bad days, but you've got to do it anyway. Objectivity is that professionalism that I know we all want to bring. And the more objectively, and clearly we can see our situation, the more we can act in the most useful way for our clients and of course for ourselves. How do we put it into action? Keep records of our activities. Are we doing enough commercial activity? Have we had enough touch points with that particular client? Be mindful of our emotions. How are we seeing things right now? Is that clouding how we're going to go into the next meeting? Identify the necessary tasks we don't like and maybe plan them in for when you're more likely to do them. I myself have much more discipline in the morning than in the afternoon. Make sure that you have, you plan, you schedule as much as you're allowed to or as you can to get your morning energy, afternoon energy, however you are. All right, so next up is curiosity, being genuinely interested to know more. People always worry about being looking like a salesperson, having to know all the answers and all that stuff. They don't. Great salespeople are really, really interested. You can't help people if you don't understand them. And if you're genuinely interested, you really want to know more, your clients will talk to you. They will open up. They will tell you about it. And everything's interesting when you're told something by someone who finds things interesting. And by focusing on asking questions, you don't need to worry so much about knowing everything, which is the imposter syndrome thing. If you're just thinking about asking great questions, you don't need to worry about having all the answers. So be intentional about your meetings, like I said before, but don't be intentional about how you get to the answers. Be open, listen to it all, and ask spontaneous questions. If something interests you and you think it might sound stupid, just ask it anyway, because it might be interesting. Empathy, principle number 4, stepping into the other person's shoes. And I love this quote. This is from a client of mine, Julia Fern. She talks about, on our podcast, she talked about empathy as a key leadership skill, but I think it's also a key skill in general, about seeing them as humans. Here's the thing. Companies aren't clients, people are. We talk about the logos, but it's about the people buying from you. To solve their problems, you need to know and understand them. And by the way, empathy is not the same as sympathy. Empathy is understanding their situation, but telling them what needs to happen. Sympathy is crying along with them. And so don't feel like if you're going to be empathetic to them, you're going to be led by them. It's quite the reverse. It's about understanding where they're at so you can lead them better. How can you put it into action? Ask the silly question, like I said before. Really listen to the answers. Listen to discover, not to confirm what you already thought to be true. And allow that space for the human element. Allow for the fact that they may have had a bad day. Allow for the fact that their kids are running around in the background. We're in the Zoom world. We're going to see that stuff. Be real, be human. I'm giving you that permission. Collaboration, be on the same side of the table. Like sales, great customer success is about problem solving. People buy solutions to problems. We can't do it all for them. They have to work with us. We can't do the full adoption thing if they don't do their side of it. And so please see yourselves as equal to your clients. I know a couple of, certainly my younger clients, a lot of them see themselves as somewhat subservient to their clients, and that's just not true. Always be using we, not you and me, or you and us, see it from their perspective. I actually have exercises on getting into the shoes of a client. So if anyone's interested in that, I'm happy to send them a copy. Just make sure that any deal, any arrangement works for you as well. Can it be delivered? Make sure, yes, you're representing your customer, but you're also representing your company. It's okay to say, hey, I don't know, and go back to them. So here are our 6 principles. Which principle feels most useful to you for right now? Please write it down. All right, let's start to round up. If you want to get better, and I'm sure that you do because you're sitting in this virtual room right now, if you want to get better, a big step forward to you is to work on your confidence levels. That's not to say that you're not confident now, but there are areas in all of our lives where we're more or less confident. And in order to improve your confidence to perform, work on your mindset, how you approach a certain situation. It might be that you're great at the initial call with a client, but you're not great when it comes to talking about money or renewals or the upsell conversation. That's fine. That's just who you are. That's to do with your experience and all that good stuff. So be working on your mindset in that particular area and be working on reducing, not removing, because we won't remove the barriers altogether, reducing the power that those barriers have over you. For me personally, mine has always been imposter syndrome. And so it's about, all right, how do I make sure that I've got tools and skills and testimonials around that to help me feel confident and inspired as I go into the parts of my job that I'm less confident about. Mindset barriers, they are the way in which you get in your own way. We've all got them. They're different for different people. They show up in different ways, but we've all got them. There are 6 here: image of the salesperson, imposter syndrome, people pleasing, victim mindset, too much passion, and entitlement. They get in the way of confidence and consistent activity. Next up, principles. Principles are a guide. Principles act as an internal compass that helps us navigate difficult and uncertain situations. Again, you're never going to do your principles perfectly. There's no 100% in any of these principles. But what there is a guide. When you go into a meeting, think, all right, intentionality, what does that look like? Get out a piece of paper and be intentional about the outcome. What do you want to have happen with this meeting? What will you see more of and what will you see less of if it goes well? Objectivity. I'm feeling a bit emotional right now. Let me deploy the principle of objectivity and let me see where that goes. Again, it doesn't mean you're gonna be devoid of all emotion. It doesn't mean if you're fearful, you're suddenly not going to be. But focusing your energy on, let me be a bit more objective, is going to help you through that particular situation. So they act as an internal compass. They can work for, you can write an intentional email and you can live an intentional life. They expand and contract depending on the particular task that you want to deploy them to. But these 6 I have found to be particularly valuable, particularly useful for the customer success professionals that I work with. So if you want to know more, if you want to get a summary book of everything that I've talked about, it's a long thing. I'm happy to send it to you. You can do one of 4 things. You can scan this QR code. That will take you to the customer confidence page on my website. Fill out the form and you'll be sent a summary book free of charge. Or you can email into hq@nextlevelcpi.com and we'll be happy to get a copy across to you. If you'd like to join me on LinkedIn, there's my LinkedIn handle right there. Or you can go over to nextlevelcpi.com/customer-confidence, and that will take you to that same form that the QR code will take you to now. So with that, I think we have a few minutes left. I'm happy to open it to questions. Christy, if you can hear me, or you can tell me to shut up because I like to talk about this stuff.
James, this is Dave. Thanks so much for awesome content and joining us from London. Maybe just one tip. What do you do if you've been burned in your sales process? You're a young CSM. You've gone through a tough renewal or commercial conversation, and things didn't go as well. How do you regroup? What's your suggestion for somebody who's maybe lost a little confidence through a painful experience?
Yeah. So there's one particular. I'll call it a technique, but it's really a question to ask yourself that I wish I had 10 years ago. It's because the setback of being burned is incredibly painful. It's just, it shakes you to your confidence, to your core. It's what you do next, in my opinion. And so the question is this, is you think of a time in the future when this situation that you're feeling that is miserable is over, and it's contained and it's part of your history, it's part of your story, and it's something that you are talking about with someone. The question is this, what is the story you want to be able to tell? What is the story you want to be able to tell? And what that does is it focuses you on the here, the now, and the actions that you want to take. And that snaps you out of feeling sorry for yourself, which everyone does, and goes, all right, I've been burned. What do I do next? It helps you to deploy intentionality, which we've talked about, and objectivity, because we all want to be truthful. And so we want to be able to tell that story when we're telling it in the future. And so that gives us a route map for, okay, here's what I could do. If you're really young CSM, that means I'm going to go talk to my manager. What are the options here? It's very tempting to blame oneself, and it's very important to own the mess ups that you have done yourself, but it's never entirely your fault. So I found that particular question to be really, it won't make the pain go away, but it helps the focus.
Okay, that great advice. Well, we appreciate you joining us. I know it's late there in London or early evening. Thanks for all the advice and the recommendations. It was very powerful. Thank you.
That's my pleasure, Dave. Thank you very much for having me.
All right, Christy, tell me your thoughts. I mean, I loved what James had to say. I remember as a young CSM where my customers came to me and wanted to have these conversations, but I was a little bit timid. They were a little bit scary. What about your experience? How were these commercial conversations for you?
I mean, so if we reflect back to my presentation this morning, right?
Yeah.
One of the things I had to overcome was this whole recurring revenue kind of aspect of the business that we work in. I didn't know how to navigate them. I didn't know how to even ask somebody for the renewal conversation, or forget growing, right? Like, more money was off the table. Asking them for the money they've already invested, that was a challenge. And so, I think one of the things we all need to be cognizant of is, if we're going to have our frontline CSMs navigating those discussions, is empowering them with the talk tracks, right?
Agreed.
I'm a big fan of role play and just coaching people through that. You gotta power them with the right way to have that discussion. But it's scary.
I love that too. For all CSMs, I would highly recommend role playing. I think the sales teams do this quite a bit.
Yeah.
I think CSMs need to adopt that more. And it's interesting because I think that I've always said CSMs are the best solution sellers out there, because they know their customers inside and out. They know this. They know what they need to continue to grow and expand. And I just really think this is a skill set that CSMs need to develop very early, is to have this confidence in having those kind of conversations. I liked what James said. He said, embrace the discomfort. And that was really good. And I know that I've been there, uncomfortable, and now I feel a little bit more comfortable.
I think you got to do it enough times, right? It's like with anything. And this is why experience is so key. And we talked about, like, you got to put in the work. You have to do it enough times to build that muscle memory. I feel like now I can enter that conversation, and if I reflect back to just even being present and how I feel in the moment, it feels completely different than when I initially started having those conversations. You do develop that confidence over time, and that's true with everything, right? But the commercial aspect in particular.
Yeah, I know the great debate in customer success is, should the CSM team own renewals and expansion? Does it matter? Do you still, even if you don't own renewals and expansion, should you create and improve these skills?
Absolutely, because even though you might not be going through the commercial motion, right, of like the paper process and executing it, you're still advising your customers on a solution that hopefully is in line with something that they need. And so, again, to your point, through that solution selling, you're effectively still having that conversation. And that's something you should be doing all the time, because you're selling the value of your product and how it's going to inherently help them solve the problems that they came to you with. So I think those are the things to think about, whether you're executing paper or not. I think that doesn't matter. How you help your customers solve their problems, I think it's the same talk track.
Okay, great. And I thought one other part that resonated with me is he said there's this concept of people pleasers. I think this is interesting. I know this is gonna be a generality, but CSM personalities tend to be people people pleasers. We love relationships. We want people happy, successful. But how can that prevent us from having these conversations or navigating the conversations well?
I mean, as probably the ultimate people pleaser, I get it. It is difficult, right? You never want to let anybody down. You always want to tell them what they want to hear. But I think building the strong relationship that we always advise folks to build with their customers and putting yourself in and earning the right, I don't want to say putting yourself in, earning the right to be the trusted advisor allows you the ability, I think empowers you with the ability to not always tell your customer yes, or not always give them what they want or tell them what they want to hear. It allows you to actually have a constructive dialogue with them, right? And I think about it like in a marriage, right? You don't always tell your partner what they want to hear. Sometimes you have to have a tough dialogue. And I think that comes with the strength of relationships. So if we're focused on building relationships, which we all should be, then hopefully over time we can start to build the confidence around being able to maybe say things that don't please everybody.
Well, that's good. You're great at that, actually, and I agree. I think sometimes you've got to hold firm. Sometimes you've got to have those tough conversations, and that's where the respect comes in from your customers when we do that. But great topic. Hopefully everybody enjoyed. We appreciate James joining us.